Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. This story takes place from 2017 to 2024. I studied digital media production in college, focusing on streaming and live events. After working in several production studios and gaining experience with major streaming platforms and live events, I decided to start my own digital production company. The catch with this industry is the massive initial investment required. You need at least $5,000 worth of equipment just to be competitive in today's market. While my company was finding its footing and paying off equipment loans, I needed a steady income stream. My expertise with professional equipment and streaming technology helped me land a position at what I'll call the Grand Hotel, the most prestigious independent luxury hotel in the Pacific Northwest. This wasn't just any high-end hotel, it was the hotel where tech executives and industry leaders stayed when visiting the region. Think of it as the Ritz-Carlton of Seattle, but with more character and history. I started as their digital media specialist in 2017. My role involved managing all aspects of event technology, from basic conference setups to elaborate product launches and hybrid events that combined in-person and virtual components. Your first week's going to be intense, my supervisor warned me. We've got 3 major tech conferences back-to-back. I thrive under pressure, I replied confidently. Just show me where everything is. And I wasn't lying. Within my first month, I was handling multiple events simultaneously, coordinating virtual attendees with in-person presentations, and managing complex multimedia setups that would make most tech professionals sweat. I've never seen anyone pick this up so quickly, the events director told me during my 6-month review. We're promoting you to lead technical director. I now managed a team of 5 specialists handling everything from traditional AV to virtual reality experiences and holographic displays. The hotel's corporate structure was complex. My immediate superiors were Sarah, our sales director, and Marcus, our operations director. They reported to Omega Tech Solutions, a national company providing high-end event technology services to luxury hotels nationwide. Omega had an exclusive contract with the Grand Hotel, which was owned by Vista Hospitality Group, VHG, a corporation managing luxury properties across the country. VHG's headquarters was just down the street, making our hotel their showcase property. Listen, Sarah pulled me aside one day. VHG's CEO wants something special for next month's shareholders meeting. Can you handle it? Give me the details, I said, already planning the setup in my head. This led to me producing custom content for VHG's corporate events, establishing connections throughout the organization. I became known as the go-to person for high-stakes presentations and complex technical requirements. We need someone we can trust, a VHG executive told me during a sensitive product launch. You've proven yourself reliable. By 2022, Omega's contract was up for renewal. Enter Nova Events Technology, an aggressive competitor that had been expanding rapidly. Through some strategic networking, Nova's executives had convinced VHG they could provide the same service at a lower cost. They want you as part of the deal, Marcus informed me. You're too valuable to lose. So in one exhausting 24-hour period, I helped Omega move out and Nova move in. The difference in equipment quality was immediately apparent. This isn't going to work, I muttered, looking at Nova's outdated gear. Trust the process, Nova's new director insisted. But things went downhill fast. Nova's management style was rigid and disconnected from client needs. They implemented policies that prioritized profit over service quality. We can't just give them extra equipment because they ask for it, the new sales director would say. If it's not in the contract, they pay extra. The decline was steady and painful to watch. By 2023, our event bookings had plummeted. My team was barely getting 15 hours of work per week. This isn't sustainable, I told my team during one of our rare meetings. We need to think about our futures. That's when I started orchestrating our exit. I contacted every Novatech in the region and we coordinated our resignations to coincide with VHG's annual leadership summit. You're leaving us without support for our biggest event? Nova's director asked incredulously. 2 weeks' notice is standard, I replied calmly. Not our fault you haven't hired replacements. As expected, Omega was ready to step in and save the day. They eventually absorbed Nova's assets and contracts, restoring stability to the hotel's events program. While I succeeded in bringing down a company that deserved it, the victory was bittersweet. The 2 years I spent watching Nova's decline cost me everything. My production company, my condo, my car. I had to rebuild my life from scratch, focusing on lucrative corporate positions rather than my passion for creative production work. Sometimes winning doesn't feel like winning, I told my former colleague over coffee recently. But at least I know I did the right thing. Nova may have taken everything from me, but I took everything from them too. One tech, one coordinated plan, and $1 million company crumbled. The next one is an entitled People's Story. Let me tell you about the time an overreaching homeowners association tried to control my private trail and learned a harsh lesson about jurisdiction. This happened over the course of about 8 months, and it still makes me laugh thinking about how spectacularly it backfired on them. I own 15 acres of wooded land that's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought it in the 1950s, and I inherited it from my father 5 years ago. The property includes a beautiful nature trail that winds through the woods for about a mile. We've always maintained it well and allowed responsible locals to use it for hiking, running, and nature walks. About 2 years ago, a developer bought the adjacent farmland and built a fancy subdivision called Oak Ridge Estates. These weren't just regular homes, we're talking million-dollar McMansions with all the bells and whistles. Of course, they established an homeowners association because heaven forbid someone paint their door the wrong shade of beige. Everything was fine for the first year. Some of the new residents would use our trail and most were respectful. We had a few minor issues with people letting their dogs off leash, but nothing major. I'd politely remind them about leash rules, and most understood. Then everything changed when Karen, yes, that's her real name, became the homeowners association president. She moved in about 6 months ago and immediately started trying to improve everything about Oak Ridge Estates. Unfortunately for me, she decided our trail needed improving too. It started with a letter in my mailbox printed on official Homeowners Association letterhead. Dear property owner, it has come to our attention that the trail adjacent to Oak Ridge Estates does not meet our community standards. As per Homeowners Association bylaws, all recreational areas must be properly maintained and meet specific safety requirements. Please make the following improvements within 30 days. Install proper lighting along the entire trail. Add security cameras. Pave the trail with approved materials. Install emergency call boxes every 500 feet. Remove dead trees within 20 feet of the trail. Add proper signage with rules and regulations. Failure to comply will result in fines of $500 per day. Regards, Karen Thompson, Homeowners Association President. I actually laughed out loud when I read this. My property wasn't part of their homeowners association. It wasn't even in their subdivision. I decided to be professional about it and wrote a polite response. Dear Miss Thompson, thank you for your letter. However, I must inform you that my property is not part of Oak Ridge Estates or its homeowners association. The trail is on private property that has been in my family for 3 generations. Your homeowners association has no jurisdiction over my land or the trail. Best regards, my name. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I found homeowners association violation notices stuck to trees along my trail. The next day, I caught 2 homeowners association board members on my property taking photos and documenting violations. When I confronted them, they acted like they owned the place. We're conducting an official homeowners association inspection, Karen said, holding up her phone to take another picture. This isn't homeowners association property, I replied. You're trespassing on private land. This trail is used by Oak Ridge residents, which makes it subject to our jurisdiction, she argued. We have to ensure it meets our standards. That's not how property law works, I said. Please leave now, or I'll have to call the police. Go ahead, Karen smirked. We'll see who the police side with when they hear about all these safety violations. So I called the police. When Officer Martinez arrived, he quickly confirmed what I already knew. The homeowners association had 0 authority over my property. He told Karen and her friend to leave and warned them about trespassing. But Karen wasn't done. The next day I received another letter, this time from their homeowners association lawyer, claiming that because their residents used the trail, it constituted a community amenity and therefore fell under homeowners association jurisdiction. They threatened legal action if I didn't comply with their demands. That's when I decided to fight back properly. I contacted my own lawyer, Sarah Chen, who specialized in property law. She was practically giddy when I showed her the letters. This is one of the most ridiculous overreaches I've seen from an homeowners association, she said. And I've seen some doozies. They have absolutely no legal standing here. We sent a cease and desist letter to the homeowners association board and their lawyer, clearly outlining why their claims were baseless and warning them about the consequences of continued harassment. We included copies of my property deed, survey maps, and relevant local laws. Instead of backing down, Karen doubled down. The homeowners association installed their own sign at the trail entrance stating it was under Homeowners Association management and posted an official notice on their community website claiming they had authority over the trail. That's when things got really interesting. My lawyer filed for an emergency injunction to stop their interference with my property rights. We also prepared a lawsuit for harassment, trespassing, and defamation, but before we could file it, Karen made her biggest mistake. She hired a contractor to start installing light posts along my trail, without my permission, without permits, and completely illegally. I was working from home when I heard machinery on the trail. I went to investigate and found a construction crew digging holes for light posts. When I told them to stop, they showed me their work order, signed by Karen as property manager. I immediately called the police and my lawyer. Officer Martinez returned, along with his sergeant this time. They shut down the construction work and took statements from everyone involved. The contractor was furious when he learned he'd been misled about property ownership and permissions. "Ma'am," the sergeant told Karen when she arrived screaming about her authority, "you just attempted to perform unauthorized construction on private property. This is criminal trespassing and destruction of property. Do you understand how serious this is?" Karen's face turned red as she sputtered, "But we need to make this trail safe for our residents. We have jurisdiction because—" "No, you don't," the sergeant cut her off. "This has been explained to you multiple times. If you continue this behavior, you will face criminal charges." The contractor, Mike, was even more upset when he realized what had happened. "You told me this was homeowners association property and you had all the permits," he yelled at Karen. "I could lose my license over this." Things moved quickly after that. My lawyer filed our lawsuit the next day, and we included the illegal construction attempt. The homeowners association's lawyer finally seemed to realize what a mess they had on their hands, especially when the contractor filed his own lawsuit against them for fraud. But Karen still wasn't done. She called a special homeowners association meeting and told the residents that I was threatening their property values by maintaining an unsafe trail next to their homes. She encouraged them to pressure me into compliance. That's when something unexpected happened. One of the residents, Tom Wilson, stood up at the meeting. Tom was a retired judge who had been quietly watching this unfold. "Karen," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I've reviewed all the documentation as a favor to some concerned neighbors. Not only does the homeowners association have zero authority over that trail, but your actions have exposed this entire community to significant legal liability. As a homeowner who will have to help pay for any judgments against the homeowners association, I move for your immediate removal as president." The meeting erupted into chaos. Other residents started speaking up about their own experiences with Karen's overreach. It turned out the trail wasn't her first attempt at extending homeowners association authority where it didn't belong. She'd been harassing several homeowners about properties that weren't even part of the subdivision. Within a week, the Homeowners Association Board held an emergency vote and removed Karen as president. The new board president, a reasonable woman named Janet, reached out to me and my lawyer to make things right. "We are so sorry about this situation," Janet said during our meeting. "We've reviewed everything and we're prepared to offer a settlement that includes all your legal fees, restoration of any damage to your property, and a formal written apology." My lawyer reviewed their offer, $50,000 to cover legal fees and property restoration, a formal apology to be published in the Homeowners Association newsletter and local paper, and a legally binding agreement acknowledging they had no authority over my property. They also agreed to install permanent markers clearly showing where their property ended and mine began. I accepted their offer, but with one additional condition. They had to establish clear guidelines in their Homeowners Association bylaws preventing any future attempts to control property outside their subdivision. The contractor's lawsuit was settled separately, with the Homeowners Association paying him for his time and troubles. Karen was forced to personally reimburse the Homeowners Association for all the settlement costs since she had acted without board approval. But the best part? Karen put her house up for sale 2 weeks later. Apparently, living next to a trail she couldn't control was just too much for her. I still maintain the trail just as my family always has. Most of the Oak Ridge residents still use it, and they're more respectful than ever. Some even volunteer to help with trail maintenance now, but they always ask permission first. Update. 6 months later. A lot of you asked for an update, so here's what's happened since my original post. The settlement was finalized and everything was paid as agreed. The Homeowners Association installed very nice boundary markers with small signs explaining that the trail is private property, maintained by my family for community enjoyment. They actually look quite professional and help prevent any confusion about property lines. The formal apology was published in both the Homeowners Association newsletter and local paper. It was surprisingly comprehensive, acknowledging not just their lack of authority, but also appreciating my family's long history of maintaining the trail for public enjoyment. Janet, the new Homeowners Association president, has been great to work with. She approached me about creating a formal agreement for trail use, not to control the trail, but to ensure their residents understand and follow our existing rules. We worked together to create a simple document that's now included in their Homeowners Association welcome packet. It explains that the trail is private property, lists the basic rules, leash requirements, no littering, dawn to dusk hours, and emphasizes that continued access is a privilege, not a right. The Homeowners Association also did something unexpected. They offered to contribute to trail maintenance as a gesture of goodwill. We set up a voluntary annual donation program where residents can contribute to a trail maintenance fund. It's completely optional and comes with no strings attached or claims of authority. Last month, we used some of those donations to install new benches along the trail, with plaques acknowledging the community's contributions. As for Karen, she did sell her house, but not before trying one last time to cause trouble. She attempted to file a complaint with the county about unsafe conditions on the trail. The county inspector who came out actually complimented us on how well maintained everything was, and dismissed her complaint entirely. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to a different subdivision without a walking trail, probably for the best. The contractor, Mike, has become a good friend. After settling with the Homeowners Association, he offered to do some legitimate work on the trail at cost. We hired him to improve drainage in a few spots that would get muddy after rain, and he did an excellent job. Tom, the retired judge who spoke up at the Homeowners Association meeting, now walks the trail every morning with his dog. He often stops to chat and tells me stories about other ridiculous legal cases he's seen over the years. He says this one ranks in his top 5 for most absurd overreach of authority. The whole experience has actually brought the community closer together. Several residents have apologized for not speaking up sooner about Karen's behavior. Last weekend, we even organized a community trail cleanup day, followed by a picnic. It was completely voluntary, and about half the subdivision showed up to help. The new Homeowners Association Board has used this as a learning experience. They've implemented new procedures requiring legal review before taking any action that might affect property outside their subdivision. They've also become much more transparent about their operations, regularly consulting with homeowners before making major decisions. As for me, I'm just happy to have this resolved. The trail remains open to everyone who respects the rules, just as it has been for 3 generations. Sometimes the best way to preserve something good is to stand firm against those who would try to control it for the wrong reasons. The property boundaries are clear, the rules are simple, and everyone now understands that good neighbors respect each other's rights. Sometimes it takes a conflict like this to establish better relationships and clearer boundaries. In the end, that's exactly what happened here. The next one is a malicious compliances story. In my first job, I worked in IT as an access and permissions administrator at a large company with significant technological debt. The environment included custom software dating back to the Windows 9X and even DOS era. Initially, the work was quite tedious, involving a lot of back and forth communication between multiple departments. We had to ensure that each employee had the necessary training and documentation to access data in the scope requested by their manager. Additionally, we needed approval from the manager of the department related to the system role in question. On top of that, the company's excessive paper-only bureaucratic workflow made the work go at a snail's pace. A single SAP account for a blue-collar worker required at least 3 forms signed by different people. The heads of departments responsible for signing those papers didn't feel any urgency to send them to us quickly. A good example of this is when I, myself, waited over 2 weeks after being hired in the IT department before my first account was set up. Until then, I only had a guest account that allowed me to access the main internal website with the company's procedures, regulations, and other basic information. Up to this point, each signed form had to be physically delivered to us, which was agonizingly slow given that the company had multiple branches. We decided to automate away the paperwork. Our first step was to allow the use of scanned documents. It was a partial success. While it eliminated the courier delays, management still required us to sign the physical copies afterward, which we mass stamped at the end of each month. The next step was to introduce a fully electronic workflow. We faced significant resistance from upper management, so we had to settle on a system that mostly replicated the existing paper processes. Despite this, it was a game changer. We created presets that managers could select and customize as needed, using data from these customizations to create better-fitting presets. We also developed workflows that automatically generated and assigned sub-tickets for necessary approvals and tracked how long it took, sending reminders if needed. And finally, we got an approval from HR to access layoff data to generate user block/removal tickets. Sometime after we rolled out the new system, the HR payroll manager made a big fuss. She was furious that her team was still waiting weeks to get their permissions and questioned whether all our work had been for nothing. That really struck a chord with me. Inside, I was overjoyed, but I did my best to keep a neutral expression. At that time, we were working on summary reports with burn down and bottleneck charts, and I already knew that tickets requesting HR payroll access were spending over most of their lifespan waiting for her or one of her sub-managers to approve them. The manager immediately went on the defensive, claiming she couldn't keep up with the amount of tickets. She then requested a change. She wanted any request from her employee to be automatically approved within the relevant scope of their sub-department. For example, a request for an HR worker to have full HR access and limited payroll access would be automatically approved for HR access but not for payroll, and vice versa. I was skeptical, but weren't exactly in a position to argue. I asked my boss to join the discussion and explain that the goal was to prevent overly permissive approvals that could lead to unauthorized access. I tried to convince her to brainstorm together potential edge cases before making a blanket approval, but she was already set on her decision and wasn't interested in discussing details. My boss shrugged and said it would be her responsibility. He told her to write up an official document outlining the change, and we would proceed with the implementation. The only request we had was to include a line that each such request would still be created, assigned to as normal and marked as automatically approved by name of the main HR payroll manager decision. I uploaded the scan into our system and, anticipating that it would eventually backfire, made a photocopy to keep it handy in the top drawer of my desk. The original copy went to the archive. A few weeks later, she stormed into our room. The speed with which she flung open the door made it clear she was furious. She demanded to know why we had granted full access to payroll data to her subordinate. I think it was the only time I ever heard anyone yell in the company. I calmly reminded her of her request to automatically approve in-department access requests. She wasn't having it, explaining that one of her low-ranking subordinates from the payroll subdepartment had accessed the salaries of everyone in their department, including managers, and was unhappy with the paycheck disparity. Isn't that obvious that they shouldn't be able to do that? Well, yeah, to a human, but that decision was automated away by your request. I handed her a copy of the document she had signed, which instructed us to automatically approve any and all such tickets without exception. Immediately afterward, she asked us to roll back the change while she wrote up another document to cancel the previous one. In the following days, she meticulously reviewed all those tickets and requested us to reduce access for several users. I have to admit, she did a thorough job and kept up a good pace in reviewing new requests, doing it daily instead of once every week or two as before. In the end, we managed to distill a subset of permissions that could be approved automatically and proceeded to implement a similar approach with other departments. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.